Hi, this is Scott Wilkinson, host of Home Theater Geeks. In episode 187, I chat with projectionist Thomas Larson about the changing world of commercial movie projection. So stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Home Theater Geeks is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson, recorded December 16th, 2013. Episode 187, The Projectionist's Perspective. This episode of Home Theater Geeks is brought to you by Ting.com. Ting is a mobile phone service that makes sense. Save money with Ting. Pay only for what you use. Ting doesn't require a contract and offers unlimited devices on one shared plan. To save $25 on your first Ting device, visit htg.ting.com. That's htg.ting.com. And by Hulu Plus. Hulu Plus lets you binge on thousands of hit shows anytime, anywhere on your TV, PC, smartphone, or tablet. Visit huluplus.com/HTG to start your free 2-week trial. That's huluplus.com/HTG. Hey there, Scott Wilkinson here, the Home Theater Geek and Director of Content at avsforum.com. This week's guest geek is Thomas Larson, the head projectionist at the world-famous Chinese theater in Hollywood, California, originally known as Grauman's Chinese, then Mann's Chinese, and now TCL Chinese. TCL, the big giant Chinese consumer electronics manufacturer, has bought the naming rights to the theater, and Thomas is lucky enough to work there as the head projectionist. Hey, Thomas, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Glad to
Thomas,
be here.
Yes, I'm certainly glad to have you here. Thomas is actually a member of AVS Forum, and that's how we originally met up. And since then, I've been to a number of events at the Chinese and got a chance to visit Thomas in his lair. And we had such interesting conversations that I really wanted to bring them on to the show. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Those of you who are tuned in live at live.twit.tv or logged into the chat room at irc.twit.tv can post questions for Thomas, and I will pass along as many as I can. So one of the things that I find so interesting is that the job of the projectionist has changed lately, hasn't it?
It really has. Over the last few years, it has changed a lot. There's no more film. There's no more splicing. There's no 35 millimeter whatsoever. We can still play it on a couple of screens, but it's all digital from here on. So
Now,
the job has really changed.
You were telling me that in your estimation, and you don't really have official numbers, but something like 80 or 90% of the theaters in the U.S. anyway are now digital.
That's what I have heard from people who's out in the field. They have told me it's up to 80 or 90% already. So it's very few film that are left.
Yeah, and those who are filmophiles might find that disturbing and depressing. But
yes.
I myself personally, I really enjoy digital presentations.
I do know one studio that told me before they made 3,500 prints for release in the States, they're now down to about 100 prints. So there's still 100 people that can get that movie. Not
in film.
In film, yes.
Well, tell us about some of the things. Well, first of all, how did you get interested in projection, and how did you come to be a projectionist?
Well, it started back home in my country in Denmark that I got a job at the local movie theater. It was just a part-time job, and I had another career as an accountant. And I got interested in it. I watched all the movies there and became a film freak a little bit. And then I decided to pursue it by moving to California and working my way into doing projection here.
Just as the industry was changing, right, from film to digital?
Well, I had a lot of years with film, and it's very recently we went digital.
Ah,
My theater at the Chinese, we have been on the forefront with digital, but also to be completely fully digital, we have gotten that this year. So it hasn't been that long, but I dealt with digital for years.
hmm. You mean you dealt with film for years?
Oh yeah, yes. I dealt with film for years, but also the last few years I have had digital at the Chinese.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about the differences between being a film projectionist and being a digital projectionist.
Well, in film, you will get in the film in a can. It weighs up to 50 pounds. You will have to splice 6 reels together. You will have to add the trailers on and then thread the projector and start the show. So digital has none of that. On digital, the hard drive will come in, and we will just insert that in the server and download it to the server and get a little key for security, and then we can schedule the show to run all week long. So a lot
Huh.
of projectionists has been fighting that change. Or they're now out of a job, but I'm one of the few that has kept my job, I guess.
Lucky
I've
for
been
you.
I've been adapting to the times, I would say.
Well, I'd say we all need to do that at some point in our careers. We have a
Yes.
photo actually of one of the hard drives that you got at the Chinese, which I just wanted to show people, what it looks like. Instead of these giant reels of film, there's a little drive called, and on that drive is a file called the DCP, or Digital Cinema Package. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Well, we get those drives, and usually Hollywood movies are encrypted. So this drive here, for example, is maybe 150 gigs, and we will take that drive, take that sleeve off. You'll see, and then we will insert it in the server. And the digital cinema package, it's a format you can. You can't make it yourself that easily. It takes a lot of computing power. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much how it is. The files are between 90 gigs, and the latest one we got for the Hobbit high frame rate in Atmos sound was 490 gigs, so
Oh my,
almost half a terabyte.
half a terabyte of data. Oh my God.
Yes,
Now, of course, that was at high frame rate, so you have
yes,
twice as much visual information as a normal movie.
yes,
And Dolby Atmos has many more channels than 5.1 or 7.1, so that
yeah,
increases the size of the file as well.
yes. So not so much the sound, but mostly the fact that there's double the material on the picture side.
Mm-hmm. How much does 3D increase the file size, given at a given
Uh,
frame rate?
I think just maybe 10 to 20%. It's not really that much more, I noticed. So yeah, 10 to 20%.
Mm-hmm. Um, one of the things that I really like about digital projection, and you probably do too, is that in a film projection, every 20 minutes or so, you got this little black dot up at the top right corner of the screen, which was a
Yes,
real
yes,
change marker.
yes. That comes from the old days of reel changing. I actually was able to do that a little bit myself back in the days. So I've been doing this for about 20 years. So I have run some screening rooms around town that still ran film where I have to look for that little cue to start the next reel and then change over.
Yeah.
But those things are gone now with digital. There's no markings or no, the movie cannot scratch in any way, and the picture is not that shaky. It's not shaky at all actually.
Not at
So
all. Yeah,
no,
that's
so
one of the
that,
other things I really love about digital is with
yes.
film, you've got, I guess you call it gate judder.
Yes. The film can it can judder in the gate or jump in the gate, and after many times the film gets dirty, and you see the speckles from the dust, especially around those changeover marks. You'll see a minute of dust and speckles on the screen that comes from dirt in the room that goes onto
Right.
the film.
Right. And then there's scratches and stuff like that. So
Yes.
if you go and see the first showing, it looks pretty good, except for that gate
Yes.
judder and the real change markers. But if you go to the 100th showing, it's going to be full of scratches and stuff.
It is, and I do want to tell you that some film purists that really likes film, they say film looks better, and I say yeah, maybe on the first showing, maybe if the projector is aligned right and tuned right, and the gears are well greased, but in the real world, 3,000 theaters across the country is not going to be that. It can be that here in Hollywood, where people really care about presentations.
Right. Right. And of course, it saves the studios so much money not to have to print all those physical film prints and ship them out to thousands of theaters.
Now they ship that hard drive that you just showed on the picture, and it's much lighter. It can be shipped days in advance. There's no really, if it gets stolen, no one can use it for anything because they need a little key that opens the encryption up, so it can play. So if people don't have that, then it's just worth what the hard drive is worth. So it saves a lot on security and shipping.
Yeah, yeah.
And printing the prints are very expensive to print also. So
yeah, exactly. What about backup though? I mean, if you deliver on a hard drive, we all know that hard drives are quite reliable these days, but they're not infallible. There are hard drives that'll fail. Have you had a failure? And if so, what do you do about it?
I had a few failures when we get the hard drives. It just won't recognize, the server won't recognize the hard drive, or it won't ingest. Then we usually get it several days in advance, and we will just call and request another hard drive, and they will ship it over or courier it over right away. Or sometimes when I do a big premiere, they send 2 hard drives out, so for sure one of them will be working. But that's I never really had a close call where we couldn't play the movie. So it's been okay, but I did have a few failures.
So it's not unheard of.
No.
Reverb Mike in the chat room is saying it's not saving us any money. Now you can't talk to that, I know, because you're not a member of the studio community. But
yeah. Well,
it's a good question.
I do know that the studios has been helping theaters for years, financing these new digital projectors under something called a virtual print fee. So the studio actually pays money to theaters when they get a movie. And then of course the growth of the movie will pay back to the studios. But this is a fee we're getting as a discount. Because we went to digital, that helps financing.
So the theaters are getting this discount or this fee.
Yes, well, I want to say to the public movie going, you're getting a much better presentation in general than you were before.
Exactly.
You can go to a show, and if you see it several weeks after, it's going to look pristine, just like the first showing.
Yeah. What about the black levels? That's always been a question I've had in digital, whether or not the black levels can match what a film can do or even exceed them.
Yeah, I'm not too much of a expert in the black levels, but I do feel when I see a good film print that the black levels are a little bit better, but digital is right up next to it at this point.
At this point.
Yeah.
Is there much difference between DLP projection, digital projection, and LCOS? We do know that Barco and Christie and NEC all use DLP technology,
yes,
whereas Sony uses LCOS technology, their version of it called SXRD. Have you had experience with both types of projectors?
I actually had only experience with DLP. I worked with NECs and Christie's and Barco projectors that all uses DLP. Sony projectors, I have not have any direct experience with, but A lot of people I talk with are telling me that they are a little bit pain in the butt, and they're very cumbersome, and they don't give off enough light, from the bulb out to the screen because of the
Oh.
LCOS is not as efficient as DLP.
Not as efficient a light
Emitting,
conveying medium.
yeah,
Yeah.
conveying, yes.
Huh. I hadn't heard that, but I know I've seen both Sony and DLP. I can't say that I have noticed a strong difference between them just as a member of the audience.
Yeah.
But from the projectionist point of view, you're hearing from your colleagues that the Sonys are a little bit more problematic to deal with.
Yes, and they have one disadvantage is servers. You can only use a Sony server that is integrated into the Sony projector. I think it has to do with security, I've been told, but that means you're stuck with the Sony server and their system all the way through.
That's very interesting because it's the same story on the consumer side with their UHD, Ultra HD TVs and their UHD server, from which can be used to download 4K or UHD content directly to the server and then play it on their TVs. But it only works with Sony TVs. It can't be used with any other brand. So they're using the same kind of idea there.
I also know about the Sony that since you can only use their server, they can only deal with Real D. They cannot run Dolby 3D because that takes a Dolby server.
Of course.
Right? So anything Sony is always Real D.
Well, and that's probably okay because there are so few Dolby 3D theaters in the country, right? I mean, am I right about that? That Dolby 3D is lagging far behind in terms of numbers of theaters in which it is implemented.
They are. When I speak to someone about it, they admit that Dolby is not they have 3D, Dolby 3D, but it's not the main. I think maybe Real D is on the forefront. That's what we have at the Chinese anyway.
Well, you have that plus IMAX.
Yes, we do have IMAX also. IMAX is 3D.
Right, which is different. I'll just make sure everyone understands that both IMAX and Real D use polarization filters in the glasses to isolate the left image and right eye image. But whereas Real D uses circular polarization, IMAX uses linear polarization. So you can't take an pair of IMAX glasses into a Real D theater. It won't work, and vice versa. It just simply won't work.
You're right.
Well, I was going to ask you about 3D as well. And how is it? I guess with IMAX you use two projectors, right?
Yes. Right eye and left eye, I believe it's set up to.
Right, and we have a picture of that actually in the Chinese projection booth. There it is.
Yes.
I've always thought that IMAX did that because it produces a brighter picture.
You know what? You are partly right about that because IMAX 2D movies also uses two projectors to make the picture brighter. So you are right about it. So 2D also uses both, yeah.
But with 2D, wouldn't the image be too bright on the screen? I mean, you're looking for, I think 14-foot Lamberts off the screen is the spec, right?
You know what? IMAX, they set their own spec, and I believe their spec is higher than 14. They are not really. They have not really told me. I don't think they're advertising what their spec is, but they don't go by standard specs.
Oh, how interesting, huh? And yet, of course, 3D is going to be a lot dimmer through the glasses, even with two projectors. But it's going to be brighter than a typical one projector setup that Real D often uses.
Yes, it is. IMAX claims that they have the brightest 3D on the market right now.
Which they probably do, except I know you were working at the world premiere of The Hobbit, the new Hobbit movie, The Desolation of Smaug. I believe you were in the Chinese as an overflow theater, right? The main event was held at the Dolby Theater, kind of next door to the Chinese.
Yes, they filled up the Dolby Theater first, and then the people who could not fit in there would come in to my theater. That's right.
Mhm. And what I found was so interesting was for that premiere, they used 4 projectors.
Oh,
They were
yes, they
using
did. I spoke to Dolby. They were using 4 projectors in there at the Dolby Theater.
Holy smokes. And yet, even with that, they claimed they told me that we were getting 7 foot Lamberts, which is half of the DCI spec and less than half for whatever IMAX claims for 2D.
Well, 14 foot Lamberts is for 2D. The DCI specs for 3D is somewhere between 3.5 and 6. So you're actually getting a lot of. So I never understood exactly what the correct number is. They mix or they do movies in different light levels. So sometimes I will get a movie and say if depending on how much you get in 3D, play the 6 foot Lamberts or the 4 foot Lamberts version on your 3D system. So some other studios are doing 3.5 and 5, and it really depends. But 7 is considered a lot for 3D.
Well, then that's why they were using 4 projectors, no doubt.
Yes, and Dolby 3D glasses are not the most efficient on the market.
Right. Do you think that you lose more light going through Dolby 3D glasses as opposed to polarized glasses like RealD and IMAX?
Yeah, I think I think the Dolby is I know the Dolby is not as efficient as RealD.
Wow.
RealD has come up with some new technologies. They have what's called a light doubler. It's called an XL box that they put in front that will actually make 2 images out of the projector. So instead of a polarizer in the booth that takes 85% of the light, now we can get double the light. It's coming up to that it only loses 70% of the light. With that polarizer, the new polarizer, it's called an RealD XL box.
Right. I've seen some information about that. It's mostly used for larger screens, right?
Yes, it is. And I have a large screen in the Chinese Sixplex next to the Chinese theater. So on the small screen, we still have a polarizer. So definitely on the bigger screens, an XL box is needed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to talk to you a bit about screens, but if you'll hang on for just a second, I would like to thank one of our sponsors for this show, which is Ting. Now, Ting is a MVNO, or really a reseller of the Sprint network. So you're getting Sprint service, but in a no BS way. There are no contracts, for example, and no early termination fees. Now, that's really important. It's truly and completely contract free with no early termination fees. Even better, there's a new ETF, early termination fee relief program. If you're paying an early termination fee to come to Ting, they've got your back. They will give you a credit of 25% of your ETF, up to $75 per device. Simply purchase your device through Ting, port your number, and then submit your final bill with your ETF detailed from your previous carrier. Go to ting.com/ETF for more information. Now, there's no bundling, there's no ride-along services, there's no overage charges or penalties. They just charge you, Ting just charges you for what you use in terms of minutes, voice minutes, texts, and data. No add-on charges. You get voicemail, caller ID, tethering, hotspot, 3-way calling, call forwarding, and a bunch of other features that are all part of the service. And there are no mysterious line items on your bill. This is really, really cool to me. They just charge you for what you use, plus whatever taxes they're legally required to collect. No hidden charges, no recovery fees, nothing like that. In fact, you can have unlimited devices on one plan, sharing pooled minutes, messages, and megabytes. Each device on a plan costs a flat $6 a month. Now, there's a powerful online account control panel that lets you take control of your account, your usage, and bills. And there's a no-hold customer support. Check this out. Call them at 855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and a real person will pick up the phone. How often does that happen? They also have excellent online support at help.ting.com with active customer forums, a simple and powerful help ticketing system, video tutorials, startup guides, and much more. First, you purchase your mobile device from Ting, which you'll receive in 2 to 5 business days. Or you can bring over your favorite Sprint phone to Ting, like the iPhone 4 and 4S. Check out the full list of eligible phones by going to our special URL and clicking on the BYOD link at the top of the page. Ting will even turn your old device into cash to help you move to Ting. After you activate your device with Ting and have the option of selecting a new phone number or porting an existing one, Ting will break out your rate in minutes, text messages, and megabytes and bill you at the end of the month for what you've used. So visit Ting today at htg.ting.com. Save money and better manage your phone usage with Ting. Check out their savings calculator and see how much you or your company can save. Home Theater Geeks viewers can save $25 on your first Ting device when you sign up. So visit htg.ting.com and start saving today. And we thank Ting very much for their support of Home Theater Geeks and the entire TWiT network. So I wanted to ask you about screens. Now, with 3D, with Real D and IMAX 3D, you need to have a special kind of screen, a silver screen that preserves the polarization of the light coming from the projectors.
Yes.
And I've always been concerned that theaters that show both 3D and 2D are at a disadvantage when they're showing 2D on such a screen with hot spotting and less bright off to the sides. What's your feeling of that?
My feeling is that you're absolutely right. If we are a little bit of a disadvantage by having silver screens, but in my personal opinion, I feel that it is such a small little thing that there's nothing really much difference. But I do realize that it changes the black levels a little bit. That there's a little hot spotting in the center. So Real D are coming out with some new screens that will take care of that hot spotting. So we're going to see in the future if they become popular, those screens.
Oh, that's cool. I hadn't realized that Real D was going to get into the screen business, but it behooves them to do so for this very problem.
Yes. We did have a premiere at the Chinese ones. We had a silver screen in, and the studio actually brought in and installed a white screen for their 2D movie. But that was a great expense. They put new screen in, new speakers behind the screen, and right in front of the current screen that we have.
Oh, wow.
Just because they wanted to show it on a white screen. But then the following premiere, the same studio was saying, it was too costly and they were going to live with the silver screen. They sent some filmmakers out in advance to take a look at the screen and see a little bit of content. And they actually were okay on the silver screen. So yeah.
Mm. Clearly, that is a very expensive proposition.
Yes,
to
it is.
Bring in a new screen, or I suppose some theaters could have like a drop-down screen and drop down the white screen when it's 2D and pull it up when it's 3D. But even that would be pretty expensive in a commercial venue.
We did have such a system before we went to IMAX at the Chinese theater. A few years ago we had a shower curtain scenario where we could shower curtain in and install a white screen. And then we could take that back out and put a silver screen in. But those screens will only last a year like that. So, within a year or a year and a half, maybe, they will be, when you fold a screen, you can never really get it, it will get some markings on it. So,
right. Plus the fact that the screens are in a commercial cinema, particularly big ones, are curved, which would make bringing them in and out even more difficult.
Yes. Yes, that's true. There was a curve on the old screen and also the new IMAX screen.
Mm. Now, you mentioned that the Chinese theater, which has been there since, gosh, the 20s, right?
1927, I think.
Yeah. Was recently actually converted to IMAX.
Yes, it was.
Tell us a little bit about that conversion process.
Well, we closed the theater down on May 1st, and then we had a construction crew coming in, and we were digging down in the basement or the old orchestra pit, if we have to go back, when we had an orchestra pit and a stage there.
I remember.
So,
Yeah.
yes. So they dig down and they made it more stadium, which is needed for IMAX. So before it was a more flat seating arrangement, only a little bit of a slope. And then, they gained 10 more feet in the height, and they were able to put in the third biggest IMAX screen in North America, I think it is.
I think you're right. And the largest IMAX theater in the world in terms of seating capacity, 900 and some seats.
Yes. So everyone that went through there so far has really praised the theater, how it came out. People were a little bit scared when you're messing with a national treasure like the Chinese is.
Yeah.
But it came out good on the other side.
Yeah, I've seen a couple things there, certainly, that were very impressive. What impressed me also was, as you said, they had to actually excavate down into the basement in order to make the stadium seating that IMAX needs.
Yes, and then we raised the back up in the back of the theater higher, like by 10 feet also.
Huh. Now, the Chinese projection room is interesting, unusual, if not unique, in that you actually have two levels. And we have a picture that I took when I was there visiting you of just from my iPhone, so it's not necessarily the most beautiful picture in the world. But here we can see, if you look down in the lower half of this picture, you will see that you can go down into the lower area, or you can climb these stairs and go up into the upper area. Why do we have two projection levels at the Chinese?
See, when we went to IMAX, and we are an exclusive IMAX theater, but we told IMAX that we also need to run regular premieres, because that's a big part of the Chinese's business, that we can cater to the studios for regular premieres that are not IMAX. So we came up with a compromise to have two projection booths. So the lower one is the IMAX one, and that is really the best angle towards the screen, in this more in the center of the screen. So we can walk up 10 feet up to the top level, and then we have two other projectors up there that can run all other digital movies that are non-IMAX, like regular movies.
Right, and we have a picture of the Christie projectors that are up there, and we can see from that picture, if we show it, well, there it is, that it's angled down pretty severely.
It is. It makes great keystoning, I have to say. But we're trying to come up with different masking settings and settings in the projector to compensate as much as we can. But it is a compromise. So
now,
but we have run several premieres on it already, and it is not a perfect solution. But a lot of theaters, they have one little thing that keeps it from being perfect, I guess.
Yeah. I always recommend to home users of projectors that they avoid any keystone correction, electronic keystone correction within the projector, because it really messes with the detail and resolution of the final image. Are you having to do actual electronic keystone correction in that projector, or have you found something else, some other way to?
No, we haven't. What we do is we crop the sides a little bit, and then we make the bottom like a smiley. The bottom masking that we install is going up in the corners. So we kind of fit the masking to it. So the picture is not completely rectangular. So that way we can get as many pixels in as possible. So, but we have not done any electronic other than masking off a few pixels on the side.
Well, that would be the way to do it, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah.
Aaron B in the chat room is asking, they seem to play a lot of 3D films. Are there any plans to play regular IMAX films as well, 2D IMAX? And that brings up the question of digital IMAX versus film IMAX. Have you ever worked in a film IMAX theater?
No, I haven't had a chance to run any film IMAX, unfortunately.
Because
I would like to.
a lot of people on the forum, you've probably seen some of these comments about how a lot of people really don't like the digital version, and this gets back to the question we were talking about earlier. They'd much rather see the full 70 millimeter film
Yes.
version, and the screen is of a different size and aspect ratio as well.
Yes.
So what about in the
Well,
Chinese? Will you be playing non 3D IMAX produced content?
we have some on the server already, like the IMAX movies in 2D, and also some in 3D that are non Hollywood movies, the documentaries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we only have the digital system, so we will not be running any kind of IMAX film there.
Mm-hmm. The IMAX screen, am I correct? I seem to recall somewhere that it's a 2-to-1 aspect ratio. It's not your typical 1.85 or 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio.
I think it's like 1.9 exactly to be correct.
Close to 2, yeah.
Close to 2-to-1. So
now is that because of the fact that IMAX film 70 millimeter was originally 2-to-1 or 1.9 to 1?
I think it was actually, it has to be a little bit taller than what we have. It is not 2-to-1 the film format, but film format is a little bit higher, so that will make it a little bit more square. So maybe 1.6 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Which is not the aspect ratio of most movies. So how do you deal with that in the IMAX theater? Do you do masking, or do you just let part of the screen go? Or
what we do is when we show IMAX movies that are strictly some IMAX movies will fill the screen in certain scenes, and some movies are just staying CinemaScope, which is a 2:3:5 format, 1:2:3:5. And in those cases, we will just have blank screen at the bottom and at the top. It's called like floating windows. IMAX, they don't really deal with masking.
Ah, okay. Now, Beatmaster in the chat room is asking the question that I was about to get to, and I'm glad he did, because it's a really important one, and that is high frame rate.
Okay.
We just have now The Hobbit, the second installment of the Hobbit trilogy, The Desolation of Smaug, which is the second movie to be released in high frame rate. The first, of course, was the first Hobbit movie. And in these movies, Peter Jackson shot the movies at 48 frames per second, twice the normal rate. And in many cases, some cases at least around the country, including some IMAX theaters, it's being shown at that high frame rate. Now, first of all, what challenges, if any, does that present to you as the projectionist?
I can tell you we are showing it in IMAX high frame rate, and we're also showing it in regular high frame rate in a theater next to the Chinese. So the challenge is that like we talked about earlier, the drive is almost a terabyte. So or half a terabyte. So it takes a long time. The IMAX took 8 hours to just transfer from the hard drive into the server.
With what kind of connection? A USB?
It's only a USB for that. Other ones has SATA connections, but IMAX is a USB connection. Yes.
Oh my God! So it took 8 hours to transfer.
Yes, and sometimes we have had a few incidences where the projector will not change over to high frame rate as it's about to start. So I have a projectionist, I have some of my assistants that helps me run the booth, standing by every time the movie is about to start in case it doesn't change over. So it's a little more cumbersome. It's pretty much like regular computers. Once you mess with bigger files, it all becomes a little bit more unstable, I guess, and it takes more time. So very, very much like that.
Well, I hope you didn't have the problem that I experienced at the first Hobbit movie. I've told you this story before. I want to make sure everybody understands. I went to see
Yes.
the first Hobbit movie in high frame rate down in Century City. It was real 3D. It wasn't IMAX. And the projector crashed. We never saw, I mean, the
Yeah.
movie started, but like a minute into it, it stopped and there were these big
Wow.
red lines everywhere. It was horrible.
Yeah.
They couldn't get it working
Yeah.
because it just crashed. And I assume that was probably because of the fact that it was high frame rate and this was a brand new technology. You
Yes.
haven't experienced anything like that, have you?
Not that bad, but only once in a while. I had two incidents on this Hobbit 2 movie. One time the projector were not switching over to the high frame rate, one of the two IMAX projectors. And the second one was a server that the server froze, but the movie finished. So those are the two small incidences, but nothing really. A customer has no refunds, I should say. No refunds.
Yeah, we got refunds on that one for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man. So tell me, what you've seen high frame rate now plenty of times.
Yes.
What is your opinion of it? There, as you know, there's a great argument or a great debate going on about
Yes.
whether or not high frame rate is a good thing moving forward or
Yes.
not. What's your opinion of it?
Well, I'm glad you're asking me now after the second Hobbit movie, because it has changed with the second Hobbit. So on the first one, I wasn't too thrilled with it, and I felt the picture didn't look, the first Hobbit didn't look what I expected of it. But before that, I just saw some test material that we were testing out of landscape in New Zealand, so we could set up the projector to make sure it could do high frame rate. That looked nice. But then we got the first Hobbit movie, and I kind of felt, I was concerned about if it was gonna, be good. But now with the second Hobbit movie, I saw most of that movie already, and I can tell you it's an improvement. There has been some improvement in the second one.
I have the same impression. In the first one, I saw there were certain scenes that looked very video-like, sort of like a PBS special.
Yes. Yes.
And there were other scenes that didn't, and I couldn't explain that. But
I
in this
feel,
case,
yes,
it was much more consistent in the second one throughout. It did not jump from looking like video to not looking like video. It kind of
I
stayed the
think
same.
I think the scenes who are actually real, that is not no CGI in it, those scenes look a little unreal before, and in the first one, and scenes now with that has special effects in it look better. That's how I experienced the first movie, but they did a better job on the second one. Now I'm only bothered if the camera moves really fast or if there's like close-up action. There's so much information that my eyes I guess I will get accustomed to it, but overall it looks great. Many of the scenes, 80-90% of the movie looks great, I think. And it really helps my eyes. It's so relaxing on the eyes to see, double the frame rate. And it works great with the 3D.
It works great with 3D, and that's what a lot of people are saying, is that
Yes.
its biggest benefit is in how it improves the look of 3D.
Yeah, it does. 3D before, it's a little hard on my eyes. Maybe it's the glasses, but I wasn't too, big of a fan of 3D before. But now I don't mind seeing a movie in 3D. I actually think it enhances it with 48 frame rates.
Mm-hmm. I talked with somebody at Technicolor who was working on the DCP of The Hobbit before it was actually released this past weekend. And
Okay.
he said that among their workers, there were some whose job it was to just watch the movie over and over and over again. And a few of them had watched the high frame rate version like 100 times. And
Yes.
he said now they can't watch 24 frames anymore. It looks, it's intolerable to them. So
Yes. I saw it. Yes, I saw it the first time a year ago, and now I see it again. And maybe I'm also changing because I see it more now. So I do think it's the way. I wish more movies will do it. will come out in that in 48 frames per second.
Right, or even 60.
Yes, I heard one studio. Someone was saying that when they do the big budget movies, they are shooting in 120 frame rate, and then they can always down convert to whatever's going to be the standard. So,
Huh.
so, so some people have told me that. Yeah, I don't know if it's actually happening, but some people were saying soon we are going to shoot in 120 frame rates, and then we will just go to 60 or to 48 or to whatever is needed. That way we can archive it in that, and in the future, if it gets re-released and we get up to 120 one day, we will have
Yeah.
movies, right?
Wow, wow. I have seen a
Yeah,
few test clips at 120, and it was amazing. It was really
yeah,
amazing.
yes.
Well, listen, before we go on, I have one more sponsor I'd like to thank for helping support this episode of Home Theater Geeks, and that is Hulu Plus. Now, Hulu Plus, of course, is part of the Hulu system, and many of you have tried Hulu.com before to get movies and TV shows on your computer. But what if you want to take that content onto your tablet, into your home theater, onto your smartphone? For that, you need Hulu Plus. You can watch your favorite shows and movies anytime, anywhere. Thousands of them, in fact. They've got tons of hit shows and movies, entire seasons that you can watch in your living room or on the go as you wish. Favorite TV shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live, Shark Tank, Family Guy, Saturday Night Live, one of my favorites that I watch there quite often. And you can watch every episode of series like Lost, Doctor Who, Community, and Star Trek, which, of course, I binge on all the time. They even have their own exclusive content, which is so cool, like The Wrong Mans and Behind the Mask. So this is Behind the Mask is a docudrama about the sports mascots, those people that wear those funny costumes out on the football field and the basketball court and stuff like that. Very interesting stuff. You also get access to a collection of ad-free movies and kids content, all for only $7.99 a month. You can catch up on current shows, binge on old favorites, catch a great movie, stream as much as you want, wherever you want. Now, right now, you can try Hulu Plus free for 2 weeks when you go to huluplus.com/HTG. Now, that's a special offer for our listeners, so make sure you use the URL huluplus.com/HTG so you get that extended free trial, and they know we sent you. And we thank Hulu Plus very much for their support of Twit and Home Theater Geeks. And we hope you enjoy watching instantly with Hulu Plus. So we were talking about high frame rate, and I know what I was going to ask you about. Up until recently, in fact, still, virtually all movie theaters, the projectors in movie theaters use lamps. These are called xenon lamps, I guess because they have xenon gas in them, right?
Yes.
But they have to be replaced pretty often, don't they?
They do. The IMAX that we just got this fall, those projectors, I actually change the lamps every 6 weeks. So I've done it a few times already.
Wow. And how much do
Yes.
those lamps cost to replace?
Well, we need 2 every time, and they cost a little less than $2,000 each.
Each?
So
Oh my God.
each. So we are
So
speaking
that's
about
$4,000 every 6
yeah,
weeks.
just about.
Wow.
4,000 every 6 weeks.
Wow. Now,
Just to
there's
power
a
up an
solution.
IMAX. Yes.
There is a solution on the horizon, which is using lasers to illuminate, to provide the light rather than these expensive xenon lamps. And of course, lasers will last a lot longer than 6 weeks.
Yes.
What's the status of that technology as far as you know?
I was told by IMAX that in 2014 we will get laser projectors at the Chinese theater. One of the first ones, or maybe not the first one, but they want to have it at the prime location to show off. So, again, it's about economics. Laser costs a lot to put in, and maybe it lasts 10 years time, and so we are saving all that money, on the bulbs for 10 years, and then we have to put out a lot of money now unless we get financing. But in this case here, I'm not too much into how it's going to work for our theater. I'm speaking in general.
Mm-hmm.
If movie theaters has to go to that, it will help 3D tremendously, because then 3D will be able to get 14-foot lamberts, like regular 2D movies.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that before. How 3D
Yeah.
movies are so much dimmer.
Yes.
But with laser
So
projectors, that they could in fact reach the same level as 2D.
yes. See, since
Now,
it's not out yet, I don't know exactly the price of laser, but I'm sure it's going to be a whole lot of stuff. And you add modules to get more light on the screen, and but you will save on the bulk cost.
well, this is my question. I mean, you were talking earlier about how the studios have helped finance the transition from film-based projection to digital projection.
Yes.
Do you think they'll do the same thing when they go to lasers, or is that going to be the exhibitor's problem?
I do not think that the studio will do it this time. No.
Yeah. I mean,
They
I know you don't have any definitive answer on that. Just your opinion.
I don't. It's just my opinion. Yeah, I don't see the incentive right now for the studio. They had a big incentive to get out of the film business because they have cost in printing. So
Yeah.
for the last few years, they have put their cost on that they save. They have give that to the theater so they could put in projectors.
Yeah, but they won't save anything when the theaters move to laser.
No, there's no saving for the studio, so there's no money to be passed on.
Yeah. So I assume, though, that at least at the beginning, converting to laser is not going to be cheap.
No, it's not going to be cheap, and I predict it's going to be a slow rollout. You'll see it in a few places first.
Well, the part of the advantage of lasers, of course, is you mentioned that you can take a laser light engine. Well, first of all, that the laser part of the system can be separate from the actual projector. So the lamp isn't sitting there in the projector itself. The laser box is out separately and connected to the projector by fiber optic cables. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, I attended a demo at Technicolor, actually, that they were showing xenon and laser side by side just to show that laser projection had come to the point where it can match xenon in terms of color fidelity and light output and so on and so on. And one of the advantages is that you can take this laser light engine and put it up to 300 feet away with a fiber optic cable that moves to now a much smaller projector, which is only just the imaging device.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty cool. And as you mentioned before, you can gang up several of these light engines to simply produce more light.
Yes. That I was told is the fact. So yeah, you add modules together and you get more light that way.
Yeah, exactly. And whereas it'll be an expensive an initial investment, over time they will save that $2,000 or $4,000 every 6 weeks to replace those xenon lamps. So amortized over time, it may end up being a less expensive proposition.
Yes. It's kind of similar if people know, solar energy, solar cells on your roof.
Yeah.
And then you save the power bill. It's kind of the same situation like that. How low can the price be so people will switch to it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in the remaining minutes of the show, I wanted to ask you then about sound systems. I know you're mostly involved in projection, and so you're mostly involved in the video part of things. But we now have a bunch of different sound systems that we can go and choose among in theaters. We have 5.1, 7.1, Dolby Atmos, Barco Oro. IMAX, I think, has its own proprietary sound system, right?
It does. So right now, actually, we are playing, The Hobbit at the Chinese in so many different formats and sound formats and picture formats and D-Box, and so I do know a little bit about sound. 5.1 and 7.1 are close together. It's only the rear speakers in the surrounds that are separated in 7.1. But Atmos is a great improvement over those two things. So they have speakers in the ceiling and extra bass, and we currently have a system installed, from Adobe, just for the Hobbit.
And that's not in. Is that in the main Chinese theater and one of the other Chinese theaters?
It's one of the other Chinese theaters next door from the IMAX.
Right.
But
we should make sure people understand that the famous Chinese theater that everyone has seen and was there since 1927 is just one of what is now a multiplex. I think you have five or six other theaters in addition to the main hall.
Yes. Up next door in the mall on the third floor, we have 6 more screens. Varies in size from 200 to 450, I think, in size.
Oh, in terms of audience size?
Yes.
And what about screen size?
The screen sizes are the biggest one is maybe 45 feet wide.
And the IMAX screen is like 96 feet wide, right?
Yes, 96.
Yeah.
So
you have an Atmos. You have an Atmos system in one of those multiplex secondary Chinese theaters.
Yes, in the biggest house upstairs with 450 seats, we have an Atmos, and everyone says it sounds incredible. That's the place to see the movie. It's also in high frame rate in that auditorium.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, and it's in Real D, I think. Real D, 3D.
Real D, yes.
Yeah. So that may be the one to go see. IMAX is currently, they have their proprietary system, but it's still only 5.1, isn't it?
Yes, they have a 5.1 system, but they are mixing the sound and doing something to the sound after the fact that the movie is made. So they are not exactly forthcoming what they do. At least I haven't heard about it, but they say they are also point sourcing the speakers. They only have 2 surrounds in the back corners that are huge, and they say they can send the sound different places depending on on the scene in the movie.
Yeah. Well, at the premiere of The Hobbit, we were over in the Dolby Theater. I was there in the Dolby Theater. I didn't get shunted off to the overflow, and they had Dolby Atmos there.
Yes.
But there was a problem, and that is that the Dolby Theater is not designed as a movie theater. It's a live performance venue. It's where they hold the Oscars every year.
Yes.
So I had a problem. I mean, the Dolby Atmos sounded great. They had actually hoisted speakers up to the ceiling on these sort of trusses.
Yes.
But I had some problem with dialogue intelligibility, and I suspect that might have been due in part to the fact that the acoustics of that room aren't really ideal for movies. I don't know if have you ever seen a movie in the Dolby Theater?
No, I haven't. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to go in there even for a test or anything. But I only seen live performance in there. So
exactly.
So I cannot comment really on the problems. But I'm not surprised it is not built as a movie theater. It's not.
Right, exactly. Plus, it wasn't the commercial DCP. It was a special DCP that they had made in New Zealand for the premiere. The next night, I ran into this friend of mine from Technicolor who said they're working 24/7 getting the DCP ready for the release, the commercial release, which was going to be in like 2 weeks. And so I said, so what we saw was not the commercial DCP. Interesting. So
yeah. I should stand corrected. I did not run the overflow that day. It got turned into another screening for press people, I think. So it was not really an official overflow. But
I see. Okay.
But I did run the movie the same day as the Dolby Theater did.
Now, Christmas in the chat room is asking, should I see The Hobbit in IMAX 3D? That would certainly be one good way to see it, especially in high frame rate. I'm recommending that people, if you've never seen high frame rate before, go see it. Find a theater that has it, because you owe it to yourself to see whether or not you like it or not. You know, a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't. I do. And Thomas, you do now that you've seen it twice with the first Hobbit and the second Hobbit. I think it is pointing towards the future, and it behooves all of us who are interested in movies and enjoy movies so much to go see it in that high frame rate, to see what you think of it. And I would love to hear what you think of it on AVS Forum.
I'm really interested in some high frame rate 2D to see how that would look. I never seen that. Right?
Yeah, the Hobbit, both the Hobbit movies are released in high frame rate only in 3D.
Yes.
So I agree with you. I would love to see what high frame rate looks like in an entire movie in 2D.
Yes.
Now, Weird Ami in the chat room is asking, do you watch all of the movies entirely from the booth, or are you too busy doing other stuff?
I'm usually too busy to do some other stuff, but once in a while, if on a premiere, we run the movie in the morning, and I get to sit in on it to see the whole movie. But rarely, I rarely get to see movies when I'm working. So I usually go to the competitor and maybe pay. I don't know if I should say that, but
no, that's perfectly fine.
That way, if I'm disturbed by something that's not correct, I can't just run up in the booth and fix it.
Right.
I relax better that way.
Right. Right. Exactly right. To finish up here, you mentioned something. We started the conversation with how the projectionist's job has changed, and you talked about that. But I wanted to make sure we got this last little piece in, which is, there often isn't a projectionist at all, is there?
No, you're right. The Chinese and also the ArcLight chain here in Los Angeles, we are the only ones, I think, that still has a projectionist, in the theater at all times. Other theaters, multiplexes, just right outside LA, or even a lot of places here in LA and around the country, they run fully automated. I have a projectionist that works for me. He used to work at another theater. When they converted to digital, he lost his job there, and now he just works exclusively for me.
So they get the DCP in, they load it into they get the hard disk, they load it into the server. The server's programmed to go, and the movie just plays at its normal times with no human involvement at all. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you got that perfectly right. We at the Chinese, we have so many screenings and festivals, and the movies move to a different house, and there's just no way we cannot have a projectionist.
Yeah,
there's work every day.
I suspect that was the part of the problem when that projector crashed when I saw the first Hobbit. In fact, there was no projectionist on staff. There was a Dolby guy because it was in Dolby Atmos, but he couldn't do anything about the projector.
Oh, I know, yeah.
So that may be a disadvantage of the new paradigm, where there's nobody there in case of some problem.
You're right. You're right.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, to tell you the truth.
In general, multiplexes, if a big house is going down, they don't have someone on a Saturday night. They can move, the manager can move it over to another house and cancel another movie and move people over, for the next show or even for the current. So then they just drop the lowest grossing movie and they don't lose a lot of business. So it's economics for them, Technical people, they cost money to have around. But, I'm happy that the Chinese are realizing that and keeping me around, for those things.
Well, may you have a job for a good long time, and I thank you so much for being here and sharing with us the world that very few of us actually get to experience. So thanks so much for being here.
Oh, no problem, Scott. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So you can find where Thomas works at TCLChinesetheaters.com, and that's theaters spelled Theatres. I guess it's the British way of spelling it. Anyway, TCLChineseTheaters.com. And if you're in LA, definitely come check out either the IMAX version of The Hobbit or in the Atmos room at the Chinese in one of the other theaters. Either way, you will see it in high frame rate and in 3D, and it's a pretty compelling experience in my opinion. So if you haven't seen high frame rate yet, please check it out. You can find me online at avsforum.com. You can email me at scott@twit.tv, and you can follow me on Twitter at htgeekscott and also at avsforum. And you can find previous episodes of Home Theater Geeks at twit.tv/HTG and on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/twithometheatergeeks. Now, I must let you know that starting in January, which is coming right up, Home Theater Geeks moves to its new time, which is Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. Pacific. So mark your calendars for that. The first show will be on Thursday, January 9th, and it will be a compilation of video interviews that I will be conducting on the show floor of CES. So plenty of interesting stuff to check out then. I do hope you will join me. But before that, we are off next week in preparation for the Christmas holiday. We will not be doing a show next Monday. But the following Monday, December 30th, I will have a panel of journalists on board to talk about all the amazing stuff that happened in the world of home theater and audio video in 2013, and perhaps a little speculation about what we might see at CES and coming in 2014. So I do hope you will join me for that. I will be at the Twit studio for that and getting ready for the big New Year's Eve 24-hour streaming extravaganza. So I do hope you will join me for Home Theater Geeks then and for that big New Year's Eve party that we will all be enjoying. Until then, geek out.